Lions just recovered a fumble.
Bits of wisdom.
It's Harry Houdini, I'm pretty sure.
That's when it kind of becomes Home Improvement After Dark.
I guess that leaves us at the question of the week.
Very good. I don't know if you noticed, Jordan, but a really cool aerial shot of the table. Reasonably funny.
User review.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Home Impodcast time.
That's right, a company that is interchangeable with Binford Tools is proud to present a home improvement podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jordan. Jordan, what up this morning?
Yo, it is almost Christmas season, so a word that rhymes with yo is ho ho ho, right?
Right, keep going.
Are you excited for this Christmas season?
No, yeah, of course I am.
No, I hate it. It's terrible. I hate gifts. I hate
your
giving.
views of Christmas are very interesting. I remember a few episodes back, you're like, are you more of a Thanksgiving or Christmas guy? I think you and I just have different ideas. I mean, who isn't excited for Christmas besides a fella that goes by the name of Ebenezer Scrooge?
And he ends up liking it too.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Oh, I just ruined that for everyone.
That's true. Yeah, Scrooged, Bill Murray, Ebenezer Scrooge. I mean, doesn't matter.
What's your favorite Christmas Carol iteration?
Scrooged, I guess. I can't think of any. I don't know any other ones.
I like A Muppet Christmas Carol.
It doesn't surprise me.
I don't know what you mean by that.
My infantilized co-host. I only know.
I like Michael Caine.
Oh, Michael Caine. Some men just want to watch the world burn. So yeah, it's good to get that in there. Yeah, Scrooge is the only one that I'm familiar with really at all. So Jordan, why do you bring up Christmas besides the time of year it is? Is there any other reason in particular that you're wanting to talk about this so early on in our recording?
You leaked a little bit of the information on Twitter, but we have a special edition that's going to come out a couple days before Christmas. It's going to be the regular show, but we're going to review the Santa Claus movie starring Tim Allen.
If ever there was a time for an air horn, that would have been it. So yes, we will be recording an episode on the Santa Claus. Don't know much about the structure, don't really know how it's going to work. You can expect it to be longer than a regular episode and probably a little bit less structured, I would say. And when's that going to drop? The 22nd, 23rd, somewhere around that time?
Yeah, a couple days, so hopefully you can download it. If you have to fly home or travel home for Christmas or you have some downtime, it'll be the perfect thing to share with your family or just, get away from your family and listen to.
I'm envisioning a lot of, families kind of listening to it.
Sitting around the fire.
Well, as they open presents on, Bose surround sound, just kind of beaming it in for the whole family. That's kind of what I envision, but people have their own traditions, and who am I to question those? But if there is a way to enjoy it, it is with everyone as you open up your gifts, or as you eat your Christmas meal. But
That's
again,
right.
Who am I to say? When's the last time you watched the Santa Claus?
I actually watched it a couple times.
Yesterday.
No, on Freeform when they played it a few times.
Stop calling it Freeform.
Huh?
Will you? Come on, stop calling it Freeform. It's ABC
That's
Family.
what it's called.
Come on.
Man, you just...
It's like people, they changed the Sears Tower in Chicago to Willis Tower. People still
Here's
call
the problem,
it the Sears
Adam.
Tower.
You like to live in the past, and I live in the now. That's the problem.
Well, I'm not a sellout like you.
I'm a real sellout for calling...
Freeform didn't grease my palms like they did yours.
Well, anyways, they've played it a few times. I've caught parts of it throughout the season, and then I've actually sat down and watched it all the way through once. So
it's probably the Christmas movie of our generation, wouldn't you say? Kind of the quintessential Christmas film of our
either
generation.
that or Elf.
Elf, right? Yeah, Elf came out when we were probably 13. Santa Claus when we were 5 or 6. So I would argue that Santa Claus came out when we were a bit more impressionable, and maybe that is a vote in its favor. But yeah, both of those are worthy. But it's not a real leap here to assume that we were going to do this. It's one of the most beloved Christmas films of all time, I think, and it stars the beloved Tim Allen. So yeah, we're putting two and two together,
makes sense.
It's equaling Santa Claus. So yep.
Yeah, so we're excited for
So
that.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, be looking forward to that. It should be just out a couple days after this episode comes out, so you'll get a double dose of Home and Podcast. And I think we're going to take the week after that off since we're kind of doing double up episodes, and we'll have, the holidays. We want to spend with our family and be off work, so...
And this is what I call work.
Yeah, this is
hard work.
This is tough.
With that, with this episode, you'll want something else to kind of cleanse your palate, because what we have today, Overactive Glance, is it's a real doozy, and I mean that in the most negative of senses.
Yeah, there's almost nothing positive about it.
Jordan, so we're covering Overactive Glance this week. Who wrote this turd?
Who wrote this turd? Well, it's a Billy Ryback joint, but I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I feel like we have something to do before we start talking about the episode.
Oh, and so we do. I'm just so excited to cover.
You're excited to get it over with.
To get this, that's more accurate. To cover this bad boy. Yeah, you're right. We do have something prior to our coverage that we need to talk about, and it has to do with queuing those rounds. Thank you.
Sure, it's all the same to me. Oh. Ah! Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
Now it's time for Bits of Wisdom.
This week's bit of wisdom comes from the Tim Allen text, "I'm not really here." Not a New York Times bestseller, but some copies were sold. This bit comes from the chapter entitled 6. The reason celebrity seems so instantaneous is because unless you're paying strict attention and following the tedium of someone's career, when a performer makes it because of a big movie, TV show, album, or book, the sensory impact of their voice and image suddenly appearing everywhere in the media is a lot like an atomic bomb exploding. There's the mushroom cloud. Look too closely and you'll go blind. Stand alone and the shock wave will blow you over. This has been your bit of wisdom.
I'm blown over by that segment.
That metaphor?
That metaphor. I'm also...
If there's one thing that you want to do, you want to compare being a celebrity to dropping of an atomic bomb.
That's right. They both have the same negative impacts.
Well, if you're reading this book, you could argue that they do.
Let me ask you, your voice changes during that segment. Do you ever find that taxing, or do you feel like you're a different person during the Wisdom segment?
It seemed like a good idea at the beginning of the podcast, just kind of like a fun little niche segment. But yeah, when I listen back to the podcast, it sounds like something out of community theater. In every week, I grow more and more embarrassed of it, and sort of start to hate myself more and more. But I'm not going to stop doing it because I have established this as kind of part of my brand. So we're gonna plow through. But yeah, no, I don't like the voice, and I find it silly, frivolous, and embarrassing.
Well, speaking of embarrassing, we've got episode...
Speaking of silly, frivolous, and embarrassing...
and something we're going to plow
Billy Ryback joint.
Episode 27, Overactive Glance. As we said, this is a Billy Ryback joint. He wrote Up Your Alley and Flying Sauces. This was...
I'd rather have B.K. Taylor, frankly.
Well, we all would rather have B.K. Taylor if this is the kind of stuff Billy's going to put out. Yeah. But, yeah, this episode aired September 30th, 1992. And Tony Topola has got a synopsis for us. I'll go ahead and read it. Tim and Jill are going out for dinner.
Start your stopwatches.
Yeah, here we go. Tim and Jill going out for dinner. Tim glues his hands together. Jill has asked Karen to babysit for the boys. Jill watches a Tool Time on tape and sees Tim checking out a woman's behind. Tim is then accused of having the wandering male eye with no control. Tim guarantees he's not going to check out the babes while at dinner with Jill. Then he is approached in the restaurant by ardent fan Kiki van Furstenwallenschein-in-Law.
Very good. It's difficult in these synopsis segments when there's typos in them and you're kind of forced to read them. I feel as though that's something you face almost every time you read them. You encounter a typo and you have to kind of figure it out, but you did it. You did a heck of a job. Your reading just continues to get better. And I think for us not to, kind of pay tribute to that would be doing the podcast a disservice.
A crime, at least.
Plot keywords this episode. I think we should start doing plot keywords because these are kind of funny. Restaurant, glue, series and series, neighbor, and marriage.
Are these on IMDb?
Yeah.
Ooh, I do like that. That's definitely something we can talk about.
All right, so Overactive Glance. Yeah, thank you, Tony Topola of Finland. it's a little shorter, and you can tell even based on that synopsis that Tony's not that into this one.
Yeah, if that's a bad omen going into this one, that's for sure.
I'll say. All right, we open with what we've come to expect in the second season, a cold open, and Jill is hanging out in kind of the usual spot, which is by the sink. She's ironing something. They are heading to dinner in 45 minutes.
Seems like a strange place to iron.
She just likes to hang out there. It's just comfortable for her, apparently.
It's a real throughway of the house. She likes all the action and traffic, I guess.
Yeah, they don't really do that much upstairs, it seems. I mean, I don't know how many times we've seen the upstairs part of the house in the series, but yeah, not a ton. She wants Tim to shower because they're going to dinner in 45 minutes. Tim doesn't want to.
I've come to notice that the Taylor family really only has one shirt, and it's a dirty lion shirt.
Well, that's the shirt that he's wearing in the opening credits. I noticed. It's the exact same shirt. Mm-hmm. What do we make of that? Why do I bring it up? I don't know. Just a fun fact. But yeah, it is very much the case of the last, I would say, almost 10 episodes, probably. Someone's been wearing a Detroit Lions shirt in some variation. And maybe that's something we want to try to track moving forward. We've had the Lions kind of showcased. We've had the Pistons showcased. Has there been any Tigers paraphernalia at this point?
I can't think of maybe anything. I remember seeing a pennant. Okay. But that's it.
Yeah, well, that's something we're going to want to...
No Red Wings either.
Keep our eyes on. Yeah, that didn't surprise me.
Okay.
All right, so there's an erection joke within the first couple of seconds of this one. Cro-Magnon Man... Does that mean anything to you? I don't get it. I didn't look it up either.
Cro-Magnon is primitive man.
Okay.
Which, again, is kind of foreshadowing to, the talk that he has with Wilson later.
Wilson
later.
Yeah, and, I mean, that's essentially, they're just setting up that they're going to dinner in 45 minutes. We cut to the side yard, and the boys are playing football, and Randy's having a difficult time. He keeps fumbling the ball, but what I would call fumbling the ball is just he can't catch the ball.
I was going to say, it seemed like Brad threw the ball into his chest.
It's not a fumble, it's an incomplete pass. He can't catch the ball. But the episode doesn't necessarily care about the proper, football terminology. We know later on, because we have the advantage of foresight here, that Randy, he's not much of an athlete in the way that Brad is, but when you're young and you've got athletic brothers, Brad's kind of an athlete, he expects to be good. And he blames his small hands. And this is something that we have heard before, isn't that right?
Yeah, I believe that people in his class used to make fun of him and say he had girl hands, so it's come back.
And he can't catch the ball as a result, so... Being the responsible father that he is, Tim gives him some sort of a super glue to put on his hands, but first he tests it on his own, and shockingly, his hands get stuck together, and this is something that, let's just say it has an impact on the rest of the episode.
That's understated. I noticed in this season, it seems like as much as we see the Lions t-shirt, Randy also always has a backwards hat. He's really rocking it.
Well, that's a sign of just kind of being cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's a timeless sign of being cool.
You still wear backwards hats everywhere you go today, even when you're teaching.
I wear them teaching. Well, I like the backwards hat with the pinwheel on the top.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Something else we all love in the next scene. Karen arrives. And
they play the opening sequence, and then Karen walks in, and you got to know when that door opens and Karen walks in, you're in for a
long episode.
Pretty lousy ep, and that's what we get.
Do you think Karen will be a better babysitter than Sir Larry Houdini?
Nice pronunciation.
Thank you.
I know you had to focus. I mean, I don't think so, because we see that she's just letting them stay up late anyways.
They seem to like her, though, which is important in a babysitter.
Well, that's because she's used to dating men that are like children, so it's just like an easy transition for her.
Can you imagine going on a date with her the way she is with Tim?
Some of her dialogue in this episode is so bad. Like, I made one note later on that I'll bring up, but she just basically like takes everything someone else says and then tries to like spin it into, I guess, a feminist approach, but also just not effective. Like, she's not effective at arguing it, but yeah, she's tremendously annoying. And all the episodes she's in are the episodes that I find myself genuinely really hating. And I'm sure, and I like her on Boy Meets World just fine, but the writing here just yuck.
Yuck, indeed. So, yeah, like you said, Karen arrives, she's going to babysit. Tim is still outside trying to get, what is he, still trying to get the stuff off his hands with the boys?
His hands are stuck together, and the boys are trying to yank them
Jill
apart.
is tuning in to Tool Time at Tim's request.
This seems strange to me. This episode is very, clunky, and the pieces don't fit together, but why would Tim have asked Jill to watch... It's called Gadget Corner, right? Mm-hmm. To watch this new segment called Gadget Corner. Since when does he have any... he doesn't care at all about her opinion of the show.
The only thing I thought was maybe that he thought she might be interested in that actual gadget and see how it works and see if she wanted it. That's the only thing I could draw from it. But Jill, she watches the show, and we see Tim checking out the woman who displays that gadget, which the gadget, I believe, just opens up jars.
Didn't notice.
Didn't notice, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So they rewind it. They watch it again. I was surprised that Karen didn't see it the first time. That seems like something she would point out.
It's pretty blatant. And they're doing... The whole thing here is I suppose they are trying to keep the football theme kind of going, and it's like they're playing back the tape almost as if it's an instant replay.
Ooh.
And then Tim comes in, and she plays it for him. And yeah, I mean, the woman walks past, Tim definitely turns around and stares at her as she walks away. It's fairly blatant, and then Karen chimes in and does her whole, Tim is the typical American man, men are awful. Here's the thing about Karen, though. She has all these opinions and stuff, but she's not married, she's not going on dates or anything, so maybe she wants to kind of dial it down a little bit, or
she says she's going on dates.
Yeah, with immature men. I'm just saying that she has a lot of hot takes here, but how's that working out for her?
She's the Skip Bayless of Home Improvement.
Well, yeah, that's the hottest seat in sports, frankly.
Well, yeah, basically, like you said, Karen's got a lot to say. This kind of brings on a wager that Tim will not check out any of the babes at the restaurant tonight.
Yeah.
Tim exits the scene by having his hands stuck to the cutting board, just like he had his head stuck to a piece of table last season. I also noticed that for some reason at the end of the scene, Karen and Jill are eating pizza, and I was thinking, won't that ruin her appetite?
Yeah, go to eat in 45 minutes. Yeah, that is. I did not notice that. Did you like the glue gag? Probably not.
No. Ever since you made fun of me, I just feel bad about that stuff, and it just doesn't seem right anymore.
I'm in your head.
Yeah.
We cut to the restaurant scene. It's the same restaurant from Offsides, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, I think it is.
I thought the entryway was the same, but the rest of it didn't look the same to me.
Really? They're sitting in the same spot, and the door's in the same place. Look at that if you want after we're done recording.
I don't want to watch this episode ever again.
I know. I feel like anytime we say we're going to look at something later on, we don't. But I'm quite certain this was the same set from Offsides.
Well, if anybody's listening, restaurant. It's completely different.
If anybody's listening and they can confirm or deny that, let us know. Yeah, it is an Indian restaurant, which brings up the question that I have is, why are so many Tool Time fans at this Indian restaurant? Like this is the first time we've ever seen Tim kind of fulfilling that pseudo-celebrity role. He's just being constantly just, everybody's noticing him. People are grunting. His entire fan base is at this Indian restaurant on a Friday evening. So that was interesting to me.
He must have leaked his plans at some point, and everyone just showed up, I guess. There's not really a good explanation for it, because
we've seen him tons of other places, and never has this happened. Even Big Mike's Tavern, which is a spot where you would suspect more people that would watch Tool Time are hanging out. But instead, this Indian restaurant on a given night is where just Tim is just the major celebrity. He's just huge.
He is huge. I guess I've never had Indian food. I suppose you have, since you visited the country.
I've had Indian food, yeah.
You like it?
Oh, I think that the versions of Indian food that I've had have been pretty tame in comparison to probably what they traditionally have. I think that, I think my brother-in-law is from India, so I think that he kind of decided that he wanted to give us a very tame version, because it's very spicy and it's wild, and I think if you're not used to it, maybe it would have have a negative impact on your stomach. So I liked what I had. It's certainly better than some of the food at other places I've been to. But yeah, I mean, I think I've liked the Indian food that I've had, but my experience with it is not, it's not especially vast. Not probably as much as you might think.
Yeah. Well, I've never had it, like I said, but I do not do well with spicy, so I would imagine this would not be the cuisine for me.
Yeah, perhaps not.
Perhaps not. So yeah, we'll go back to the restaurant, and as you said, a bunch of fans are here, and Tim's avoiding all eye contact, but all eye contact is on him, and one of his biggest fans notices him right away and starts grunting. He wants to chat up Tim about the show. Tim at this point still has all of the sticky residue on his hands, so that's still carrying through to the Indian restaurant.
Yeah, this first dude, this is the only bio we got. There's a lot of fellas that recognize
a lot of
him.
man number 1, 2,
yeah,
and 3.
we couldn't really make heads nor tails of which one was which, but this guy's pretty recognizable. His name is Kevin Brief, and he's got 130 credits to his name. He was recently in the HBO Lyndon Baines Johnson film All the Way, which stars Bryan Cranston. Did some Criminal Minds. I see Big Bang Theory appearances. Lots of television stuff. Very active fella. Ghost in the Shell, Standalone Complex, the TV series. Are you familiar with that?
No, okay. I guess that's our next podcast.
Yeah,
we're gonna go ahead and join Kevin Brief on the set of that.
Ghost in the Shell cast. But you'd recognize Kevin Brief if you saw him. He's a fairly accomplished actor. Did a lot of Wings episodes as well. So yeah, the episode, the scene continues. Tim he's not looking, he's shielding his eyes with the menu. He's just kind of looking down. As far as a strategy goes for trying to prove his point, it doesn't make much sense to me. Why is he doing that?
I think it's just he feels attacked by Karn and his wife, and he wants to prove that he can do this, and it's, as you said, it's kind of an impossible task. Like, at some point you have to know something about your surroundings. You can't just stare at the ground all the time. And at some point, you're going to be looking at your wife, and maybe someone might walk by. I don't know.
Which is what happens, Jordan, isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so he glances very briefly at a woman in red, red being a color that is very noticeable and recognizable to your eye. That does not work well for him. And Jill calls him out on it. He tries to say that he's a people person. He notices when people walk by. Another patron grunts at him. Another girl walks past, and he glances over. It's just not really going well for Tim right now. He's being attacked from all sides.
It's pretty clunky, though, and Jill's reasoning is pretty silly. Because certainly in the beginning of the episode, he's guilty of what he's being accused of. But here, he's looking at Jill, and people walk by, and like you said, the woman's wearing a red dress, and he looks up. And I'm not trying to make this sound like I'm not on Tim's side here by any means, but based on what we see, when someone walks by the table, your immediate inclination is going to be to glance over. I don't think that's an overactive glance. I just kind of think that's sort of just a human kind of thing. Like, when someone walks by you, no matter what they look like, you probably are going to glance in that direction, albeit relatively quickly, which is what happens. And
yeah, and she goes on to say, like, what was the man wearing? What are you going to remember? A red dress or like a blue suit that kind of blends in the background?
And there's a quarrel about this, and she kind of is just going on about how, you didn't notice the man, you only noticed the woman. And he's like, I don't know, she's talking about it, and she's like, well, I see them right there. And then he turns around and looks because she's referencing them and, like, pointing at them, and then again she gets mad at him. But, Tim he's put in a very tough position.
He's in a lose-lose situation
he's put himself in the situation, but, it's just her argument at this point isn't especially rational, in my mind, but, Do you agree? So, you agree, right? I mean, it's just
I would agree. It's being stretched beyond a normal point. It started out with like a very obvious and like
justifiable.
Yes, absolutely, and it's kind of deteriorated into something that it shouldn't be. But things get a little bit more troublesome for Tim as a rather attractive young lady walks by, and even Jill thinks so, and she wants Tim to look at this young lady, which he thinks is some side of a trick,
right?
Which I thought was a weird thing for her character to do at this point. since she's basically
she says this is not your night to not be looking at other babes because I don't know, like a goddess walks in, and the goddess is Kiki, last name
Van ver Fursten Wallen Shine Law,
which is a gag that plays off hilariously in a couple minutes. But this is the actress that it's Debbie Dunning who would end up playing Lisa from season 3 onward. And instead of doing
Heidi, you mean?
Say it again.
Doesn't she play Heidi?
Or what did I say? Yeah, she plays
Lisa.
Heidi. Sorry, she replaces Lisa and plays Heidi from season 3 onward. And instead of doing her biography now, I think we'll just save it for some time in the future. But
yeah, instead, I wanted to ask, did you see how she sat down at the table?
No.
Very strange. So she's like against the wall.
It's a weird. Well, it's a weird spot because she's like, well, her chair is like against the wall.
Yes.
She's like not facing her table. She's just
sitting sideways.
Yeah.
And she's eating sideways. It just seems like the wrong way to eat Indian food to me.
Well, you don't know. You've never done it.
That's right.
It's actually pretty
like
traditional.
I said, it just seems.
But yeah, so Jill leaves and Kiki is there, and Tim is trying to see her at this point because a couple of dudes walk by and they're like, "Hot babe, 3:00." and then Tim drops his spoon and he's trying to glance at her and he's using it as a reflective tool. Well, Kiki notices Tim and she approaches, and guess what? She's a fan, as you know, any young girl in West Bloomfield would be. And she wants an autograph, and this is where her last name really comes into play and delivers just tremendous amounts of joy and laughter, because it's long, and Tim is trying to give her the autograph quickly before Jill comes back.
He's also trying not to look at her at all.
Right, and but Jill does come back, and then Kiki scurries away very quickly.
She's afraid of Jill.
She's afraid of Jill. Tim begins to choke, and then everyone thinks he's grunting instead of choking, and
they all grunt with him.
And they all grunt with him, and then I slam my head against the nearest table as this episode continues.
And then Adam became concussed.
Yeah.
Jill eventually figures out what's happening and saves him. And the bread that was stuck in his throat flies across the scene. It lands in someone's soup. And I noticed that guy is not impressed at all. And I thought he should be.
What do you mean? He was probably mad. Why would you be impressed by someone's discarded bread landing in your soup?
That was like a Steph Curry shot from long range. I don't know. It was pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, maybe Steph Curry last year.
Okay. So back at home, Karn is playing cards with the boys. They're supposed to be upstairs.
Kids should be in bed.
Yeah, they should be in bed. It's late at this point. They sneak upstairs before Mom and Dad walk in. Karn asks how dinner was. Jill spills the beans. Tim says he looked, but it was, like looking at a beautiful car, which is basically...
This is the dialogue I wrote down. This is really bad Karn dialogue. So Tim says, I guess I looked, women, they're like cars. I like looking at cars. And then women says, so women are cars? It's like, Karn, take a break. It's okay to not just respond to everything. You can take a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds to kind of figure out what you're going to say instead of just regurgitating that. Yeah, so what are you saying? Women are cars? Women are boats? And it just continues on and on.
She's a tugboat. And then Tim says she's a dinghy.
Yeah, he sure does.
Sure does. Karn leaves, to everyone's delight.
But she says, I love you guys.
She does.
Says, I love you guys. They must be closer than I think they are.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, closer than them and Larry Houdini, I suppose.
I don't... He might have said, I love you at the end of that episode. His voice was muffled in that trunk.
It's hard to know, but he was singing.
Yes, he was.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Karn leaves. Jill is gonna do some dishes, and now the episode turns more serious than it has been in the first 15 minutes because she really has been affected by this. She asked if he's happy in this relationship. She thinks that something changed that's really affected Tim, and she's not as attractive to him. She asks if it's her hair.
At which point everyone was like, "Yes, it is. It is your hair." I wonder if that's in response to something. Like, do you think that there was some kind of a public outcry about her hair, and that they were just kind of responding to that, Or
Public outcry about her hair? Seriously?
I mean, do you think pre-internet, of course? But do you think that maybe the scuttlebutt around the old studio lot was, hey, did you see Pat Richardson's hair?
No.
Must be you don't think that. Maybe I'm giving the writers too much credit, but why else would they reference her hair?
Because it's different than what it was last season?
Yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, she asks if it's her hair, and he says no, he loves her hair, and that was probably the best bit of acting in the whole episode.
Yeah, I suppose.
When he said that
the scene goes on where he's kind of just stalling to figure out like why he's being the way he is. He doesn't really have reasons. I don't know if he ends up. I don't remember how the scene ends. I guess
he just can't. I mean, I don't know. Like she just keeps asking him right? Like what? Yeah, and he's stalling, and he doesn't really have an answer. And then I think he just kind of walks outside. It's they're trying to they're trying to bring two plots together that just are not working. So we get back to this side yard stuff. Randy is just sitting on that patio furniture that we saw.
I assumed this was the next day, though.
Really? Again,
why?
I mean,
because the boys should be upstairs sleeping, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. And he had another practice, so yeah, it's probably the next day. Randy had a bad practice. They are threatening to make him a cheerleader if
he
things
fumbled
don't
it
start
3
going
times. Come on, Randy.
3 times.
High and tight.
They could just move him to a line,
different position?
Like an offensive line position, or like defensive back or something. Like there's more positions on a youth football team than just receiver and running back.
Yeah, I mean, I was about his size. They made me play defensive line for some reason.
Well, that's because you were just a brute force. Still are. I mean, people don't know how big you are because this is an audio medium, but you're like 6'7", 330. So I mean, that makes sense.
My voice doesn't really do it justice.
You're huge,
heavy.
and I'm just very small and kind of meek. You're
kind of like an elf.
Yeah, I look a lot like an elf. When I drive, I have to put something in the seat to see over the wheel. Whereas you have to drive convertibles most of the time. You're just huge.
Yeah, otherwise I look like I'm in a clown car or something. This has gone on way too long. Anyways, yeah, so Tim's answer to this issue is not like anything normal, conventional. He wants to build a training machine. Mm-hmm. And Randy's up for it. He goes to get changed before they start, which leaves Tim, I should say, with Wilson outside. How convenient.
And this is where we're going to play our first clip, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Wilson? Aloha, good neighbor. What's with that cheesy music? I want to take a vacation, so I'm mentally projecting myself to a place I'd like to be. Hawaii? No. Tahiti. Hawaii's too crowded. Do you mind if I interrupt your vacation? Crack my coconut, Tim. The other night, Jill took me to this restaurant. And I was glancing at these other women. Don't get me wrong. I love Jill. I'm crazy about her. She is a magnificent mate, Tim. Yeah, I know. I really try to respect women. I don't consciously gawk at them. I do look. Is it a reflex or something? Well, Tim, it goes back a million years. In order for the species to survive, Stone Age man had to seek out many different women. Kind of a menage a Flintstone. You see, Tim, there's something very deep in your collective unconscious. Yeah, my collective unconscious. Yeah. Oh, yes. You still possess ancient man's primary fantasy to seek out many different women. Yeah, Jill doesn't understand that. No. Probably because a woman's primary fantasy continues to be a meaningful relationship with just one man. Yeah, but I look at women because collectively I'm unconscious. In a manner of speaking, Tim. So it's in my nature to look at women. That means it's okay. It's okay if you're on the Serengeti chasing a wildebeest with a club. But I was in a restaurant in West Bloomfield with my wife. Well, then I'd call it downright rude.
Wilson is on a fake vacation here. He's wearing sunglasses. He's sunbathing. He's Jay chilling in the side yard. Tim
in Tahiti.
Is that what he says? Tahiti?
Yeah, Tahiti. Hawaii's too crowded.
Tahitian treat, right? That's what he's getting his own Tahitian treat. So Tim kind of explains his issue, checking out other women, or just why does he look? He can't answer the question. Wilson says it goes back a million years.
Much like everything that Tim does, it goes back a million years.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good way to let yourself off the hook, is to just say it's something that's ingrained in you. There's nothing you can do about it. Goes back a million years. Cavemen, Jordan, the species had they had to survive. Cavemen needed to seek out multiple women. It's the caveman's primary fantasy to seek out other women, whereas the cave woman's fantasy is to have just one man.
Sure.
That's it.
I mean, there's logic behind it, but I don't know that it's
doesn't
true.
really it doesn't really apply to Tim right here. But that's what he gets, and Tim kind of tries to let himself off the hook and say, well, if it's how it's always been, then maybe it's not a big deal. And then Wilson says, it's darn right rude. And then Tim,
times have changed, and so should men.
It's back at tool time, Jordan. What's happening there?
So they have finished cutting a hole in, I guess, like a cabinet or whatever for some plumbing. They were going to install a faucet. Tim makes a really funny joke about Egypt and Pharaoh faucets. Yeah, really funny. And then Tim asks if Elle knows how important he is to Tim. And then he just kind of leaves that unsaid. He never really says that he cares about him. But the scene goes on, and Tim goes over to his trusty handsaw, and he does what he's done a few times now on Tool Time, and he makes an apology with an analogy saying...
Yeah, it seemed like a metaphor again.
Again.
Yeah, I don't...
It's going real deep.
At first I thought, wait, why is he talking about this tool? But then it's like, oh...
This tool...
The tool is Jill... And there's parallels being drawn.
Karen would be really mad about this.
Okay.
Karen would say that, so what? All women are tools?
So yeah, women are cars? Is that what you're saying? Women are boats? Women are insert noun that was just said here?
But Jill takes it better. She's watching. We kind of do that thing where it's a show within a show, and it kind of cuts to the Taylor home.
Love it. That's why one of the keywords was... The IMDb keywords was show within a show, or series within a series.
That's right. So Jill is watching either at Tim's request or to try to catch him again, checking out other women. Tim is passively outside watching, and the scene continues. And I guess the only thing I liked about this episode was when Al chokes up, thinking that Tim is now talking about him instead of Jill.
Yeah, he mistakes the metaphor for, he assumes it's about him, and then Al begins to weep, and they embrace and kind of awkwardly sort of walk off the set with Al kind of hugging Tim, and the show ends. But yeah, I assume that Tim asked Jill to watch this, because he is standing right in the doorway, kind of awkwardly, just kind of watching as she takes it in, and they make up, essentially.
And I guess we're going to play a clip of them making up real quick, so we can have some happy moments here.
Let's have some happy moments.
Well, that was an interesting show. I particularly liked the part about the saw.
So you got the meaning of it?
Yeah.
I know you're upset at the restaurant the other night.
Well, it just bothered me that you couldn't go more than 1 minute without looking at another woman.
I think that had a lot to do with you and Karen talking about that all night.
So if Karen and I hadn't been talking about it, you would have been able to go, like, what, 2 minutes?
Easy.
I know it sounds stupid, but sometimes when you look, it makes me feel less appealing, like, I lost a little something.
No, you haven't lost anything. You've gained. Come on, you're best. You're the best. I think you're beautiful. You know that. The problem is I have unconscious caveman fantasies.
What?
I was talking to Wilson, and men have caveman fantasies about being with thousands of women at one time.
Oh, really?
You don't have that problem because you have your fantasy.
And what would that be?
Me.
You.
Yes.
So, my fantasy is to be with a man approaching middle-aged with a paunch and a low-rated cable show.
Right. Now, that's not what I'd look for, but I'm not you. The truth is that what I did was just downright rude. It'd be like burping in public.
And you do that all the time.
But not with other women. I saved my best burps for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
So Jill liked that part about the saw. She saw the metaphor better than we did, I suppose. Tim comes in to kind of complete the apology, and Jill explains a little bit more about her feelings. She feels like she lost something when he looks. And, at this point, I think I assumed that this was not necessarily a cable TV show, but I guess it is. I guess I thought it was just public access, but it's actually cable, he says, or she says.
Because he says you have your fantasy.
You have your dream,
and she says a man with a paunch and a low-rated cable TV show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't get it. It seems like they do whatever's convenient for them with regards to just sort of Tim's fame. And because earlier in this episode, he's getting noticed by everyone at this Indian restaurant, and now she's saying it's a cable show. I always just assumed it was kind of like a Michigan public access show, a la our Channel 19, Jordan, if you'll recall. DTV News, that's right. But I don't know. I guess it's cable. But then later on in the series, there's talks about, and even Karen earlier in season 1 talks about it going national. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure we can know.
I'm not sure we can know, and I'm not sure I care at this point.
All right.
So we go outside at the end of this episode, and Tim brings out the family. He's made up several dummies, which, I mean, this kind of goes to show that he does have some sort of talent in this mechanized world. Tim puts on a helmet, and he's going to test what he made for Randy. So
you know what the irony is here, Jordan?
Hmm.
Tim's the biggest dummy of them all.
Oh, ouch.
Keep going. Sorry, I had to get that one in.
So he starts by going through these ropes. The family is easily impressed.
It's not that hard to do that. That's what I wrote. What
Brad
he does
goes
is
ahead
not
and flips
impressive.
the switch. The machines start kind of like cycling, like it's a car wash or something, and it goes a little bit faster than he expected, but he still makes it through without fumbling. And then Brad hits the last switch, which is a dummy that basically tackles you. It hits Tim, and he goes through the fence and into Wilson's yard, where he has been sunbathing for perhaps 48 hours straight.
Yeah, it's good to see Wilson's yard. It's very clean, and there's really not much going on, which kind of contradicts everything we've ever known about Wilson or his yard, because it's very tidy, and it's really just him sitting in a, I don't know, what's it called? Not just patio furniture of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call that?
I don't know, like a reclining lawn chair?
It's not a reclining anything.
It is now.
But yeah, then we roll credits, and there's some bloopers, and that is Overactive Glance, which is a play on Overactive Glance according to IMDb. So.
I never would have got that.
And that's the app.
It sure is.
Ooh.
You made it through. Do you have enough energy for highs and lows?
Not since Mo Better Blues has an episode been this terrible, boring, uninteresting, and worked less. You go first. Go ahead. Let me gather my thoughts.
What makes you think I have my thoughts gathered?
Well, somebody has to.
The
show must go on.
All right. So I think it's pretty evident that neither of us really enjoyed this episode.
Hated it.
Karen continues to be a rough character to spend time with. The fact that she's just always antagonistic and attacking Tim, regardless of what he does, really, I think she has it out for any sort of man. So it's hard. I do like that they continue to foreshadow in the cold open a little bit. I think that's kind of interesting that you can kind of garner a little bit about what's going to happen, and we'll see if that continues throughout the season. I don't know. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of very confusing things that happen. Why is Tim so popular at this Indian restaurant? Why are there so many fans grunting? I don't know. Why is Randy struggling so much with his small hands? A lot of questions that are unanswered to me. I I don't know. I don't like the episode. I'm glad to be over with it. There's not really much that I enjoyed about it, so.
Okay, yeah, there's nothing that I enjoyed about this episode. Bad subplot with Randy and football. Just no details given, no payoff. It doesn't work in the context of what we're given here.
Even the sticky hands thing kind of just ends.
It's just as if they want to have Tim be able to step outside and have something else going on, but this doesn't work. In terms of the actual Overactive Glance plot, I think, I was thinking of ways they could have made it better, and I have a list of ways they could have made this better. Well, basically just two things. I think they should have had it be like an actual bet, right? I think that, he should have been there, and there should have been a bet with stakes, and then if he lost, which he would have, then there would have been some kind of a funny payoff there. But the whole bet thing just kind of comes and goes. And she also, as soon as they get there, she's like, we've only been here a minute, and you've looked at, two women. They'd been there, 5 minutes at that point. I don't know if you noted that, but she says they've only been here a minute, and the scene had been going on for, 10. So I think
it was a long scene.
They should have had a bet with actual stakes. Another option is they should have had...
You mean like ribeye or New York strip?
Another option is they should have had Jill look at a man. And then, that would have been interesting. In the same way that when a woman in a red dress walks by and Tim looks up, they should have had, a man in a handsome guy in, a suit, and then Jill looks up, and then they could have done something with that. Kind of
that would have been interesting.
See, that would have been...
Or Tim should have taken her to, a place where there is a bunch of good-looking men.
Right, yeah. Something else could have been done here. Those were just two possible ideas I had. In terms of what we're given, Tim's a jerk in the beginning. Tim's kind of a jerk throughout. He's put in a tough position at the restaurant, and some of that isn't necessarily fair. But yeah, in essence, Tim is being a lousy husband and not a great family man, and it's not. And I don't ever enjoy that. That's not the episodes where they're constantly kind of fighting, and they're not constantly fighting here, but the episodes where there's just too much strife are not enjoyable. And in this one, Tim is at fault, even though Jill does kind of unfairly sort of... when people walk by, that section is just sort of weak, because what are you supposed to do? But yeah, I did not enjoy this one. I didn't get any laughs. Can't stand the Karen stuff. It just bad writing, I would say, and just a plot that didn't come together for me.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, Billy, here, but this is not what I like to call a Billy Ryback joint.
Yeah, it's
a shame to the Billy Ryback name.
Yeah, and a shame to joints.
Like I said, I did like that little scene at the end with Al where he thinks the tool is referring to him.
I didn't. I feel like we've seen that before.
I know, but I needed anything to hold on to in that episode, and it was at least enough.
Well, they say fame is a lot like having an atomic bomb dropped on you, Jordan. And this just kind of illustrates that, doesn't it?
It sure does. What are we gonna do next? What's next?
So we were going to do we were going to return to the user review section, but Explorer DS had some... he said a lot of negative things about women, and it's about 500, 600 words, and it's vulgar. And it's we
don't want to give light to that.
We just don't want to make him. We don't want to give him a platform. So we're gonna skip that one, and maybe we'll return later on. Although I will say, Explorer DS does not recommend Overactive Glance. So that is one thing. There are better episodes to watch instead. But before that part, he does call several of the women in the show the B word. So we don't want to.
Beautiful.
In a perfect world. So let's transition into the social media roundup segment of the show, and if people want to reach out to us, there are not dozens of ways, but
half a dozen,
maybe. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I would say. And one of those ways is Twitter, and we are on Twitter at Home Impodcast, and we did some tweeting this week. I responded to the Ryan Lochte birth photo. That was one thing I did. Noted the loss of Alan Thicke. That was sad a few days back. Good television dad. And here's our poll. And our poll, shocking results, Jordan. Have you ever been to a monster truck rally? I asked. 0% said yes. And I would have thought that people that are into home improvement, home and podcast listeners, at least one person would have been to a monster truck rally. 64% said no. 36% said Fordzilla got a Hemi. 0% said yes, and that's 11 votes. So,
well, do you think that some of the Fordzilla got a Hemi votes could have been a yes as well?
No, I don't think so.
Not possible.
Nah, I don't think
they
so.
are mutually exclusive.
Not in my eyes. So that's one way to reach us. We're also on Facebook, Jordan, and how do they find us on there?
Facebook.com/Home Impodcast. Also on our website, thehomeandpodcast.com. We have a contact button there that you can go ahead and reach out to us. And also you can email us at homeandpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to support us, that's an option. You can go on our website, or you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Home Impodcast, where you can sponsor us for $1 a month or more.
Yeah, or there's the PayPal option as well.
Yep.
So we want to keep things going. We want to keep the lights on here in the studio. So every little bit helps. And Jordan, we haven't had any iTunes reviews in a while. What's up with that? Why do you think that's? Why do you think that is?
I don't know what it is. It kind of breaks my heart though.
Do you think it's just 2016 getting the best of everybody?
It is.
People are just so over 2016.
Yeah, it's time for 2017.
Everybody's
Maybe
ready for
2017 will be the year of Home and Podcast.
Almost certainly, yeah. I'd say so. We'll we'll get Richard Karn on the show. We'll have 113 as opposed to 13 or 12 iTunes reviews, and we'll blow up. We will blow up.
We've got lots of goals for next year. We hope to reach them, but we can't reach them without you guys.
We need you. We need your support. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's the social media roundup. So I suppose at this moment,
from this moment, life will go on. I do. We didn't have a lot of asides in this episode because there wasn't really anything funny to talk about. One thing I did think of that I was going to use as an aside, but I instead saved for the question at the end, is this. So Jill notes her hair, and we've talked a little bit about how, her permanent is not a spectacular hair choice, but perhaps just a product of the era. But I would call it kind of just a bad haircut. And I wanted to ask you today, Jordan, what's the worst hairstyle you've ever had, or have you ever gotten a really bad haircut, or anything along those lines?
Oh, several. In high school for a long time, I just kind of let my hair grow really long.
I would say you had almost a bowl cut in high school.
It was a bowl cut, but without the bowl somehow.
It looked like
just kind of went like all the way down to my eyebrows, straight down. The bangs went straight down for some reason. Not a great look. I'm not sure why you let me deal with that for so long. Is it just because you wanted to be my friend, or what was the deal?
Jordan, I don't know how well you know yourself. Perhaps not as well as I know you, but you're a headstrong fella, and you don't like to be persuaded to do anything you don't want to do. So I wouldn't dare have tried to tell you how to style your hair back then. Nor would I try to tell you how to style your hair now. Yeah, you make it sound worse than it was, but
it wasn't great.
Well, no, it wasn't great, Jordan, but very few times do we look back upon our previous styles and looks. This has been almost a decade at this point. And say, wow, that was really great. But yeah, it just kind of it fell down, on your head in a bowl style.
Bullish.
You were bullish.
That was a bullish haircut.
All right, anything else?
Can't really remember a lot more when I was younger. I did put in 5th grade, I think my hair was up in the front. I thought that was a pretty good look.
Oh, lots of people did that. Yeah, I don't think that's anything to be embarrassed about. Did you ever? And I'm sure you didn't. Did you ever get highlights or color your hair blonde?
No, when I was really young, my hair was blonde naturally, and it turned brown. So I felt like I had the blonde hair phase. I didn't want it again.
Okay, that's fortunate for you, because I find myself on the other side of
you went frosted
the spectrum.
tips, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. My mom never wanted to
Don't blame this on your mom.
I have to. I mean, isn't that how it works? You blame the negative parts of your childhood on your parents. I feel like my mom or dad didn't ever want to pay to have me get these frosted tips or have my hair dyed blonde. So my mom would just do it in the sink, and it would always come out gold, like a gold color. And I only did it maybe for 1 year. It was 7th grade, as if 7th grade isn't tough enough.
Before you knew me.
Perhaps, yeah. I did that, and that was real bad. I also remember trying to get Nike swooshes.
Oh man.
etched into the back of my head as a young boy, and them looking more like check marks, and that was frustrating as well.
Done with this guy.
Because again, I think my parents just I think I went to Grondin's, which was the local.
That's where I went for a long time.
Yeah, well, that explains our bad haircuts. No, I don't.
Hey, Grondin's is good.
No disrespect to Grondin's. I'm sure that we just didn't know what we wanted. I got that, and then other than those are the two main things. I think I finally got my hair figured out a few years ago, and now I've been more or less doing the same thing for the last couple of years, and I'm pretty happy with how things are now. But yeah, I struggled with it for a long time. Different. When we were younger, I used a lot of. I think it was popular. The gel that kind of hardened.
Yes.
People use that, right? That wasn't just me. I think that was something that a lot of people were using.
My hair was known for being so soft because I just let it hang down in the bowl style.
Who knew that about you? When you say known, who are we talking about?
It was the rumor about town.
Yeah, all right, sure. I must have missed that one. Also, people used. I remember in middle school, and I did not do this, but I can think of some people that did. Was the colored hair gel?
Oh, I don't remember that.
I don't know. I don't think he'll care. Kyle Bro. To alienate a lot of our users, our listeners, a fellow we knew, I remember him kind of spiking his hair up with colored hair gel. We both like Kyle, respect Kyle, but that is one thing. When I think of him from those years, I remember that. But if there's anything less interesting than talking about hairstyle, it's specific people that only we know have hairstyles. So perhaps it's time to call it off. But we are
both happy with our hair choices now. Perhaps that will change. But right now, we're in a good spot. We're not where we used to be. We don't go to Grondin's anymore.
No.
But I don't really have anything against Grondin's. I always enjoyed the people there, at least.
Yeah, okay. Next week on Home Impodcast, we are covering
the Santa Claus.
We sure are, and I'm excited. I don't know what it's going to be like. I haven't watched it in a little bit. The episode, it's going to be free flowing.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
I'm optimistically cautious. Let's just say that. So that'll hit sometime before Christmas. If you like it, if we get good feedback, maybe we'll keep doing some other Tim Allen films. I'll say that's my thoughts on the subject. But that's next week, and then we'll take a week off or so, and then we'll return with what episode, Jordan?
Groin pains.
Groin pains, indeed. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this not spectacular episode. Hope we did it justice, and you enjoyed our thoughts on it at the very least. And I guess I should say, take care, Jordan.
Take care, everybody,
and take care, listeners.